Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon with you, flying solo with you for this show. Eric Lopez, we're going to talk to him in a little bit. He's actually up in Greenville, North Carolina at the American Athletic Conference Softball Tournament. We're going to check in with him and talk about UCF Softball. Of course, they came up short in their first game in the AAC Tournament against the hometown East Carolina Pirates. We'll reflect on that. We'll reflect on the softball season in general and a couple of other things. We're also going to have Brian Murphy on the show, our baseball writer at blackandgoldbanneret.com. Brian will be talking about UCF Baseball as they head down the stretch in their regular season with the American Athletic Conference Baseball Tournament just a couple weeks away. A couple big home series still left to go here, including one on the road against Cincinnati this weekend that's worth paying attention to. A couple reminders for you before we get started. Make sure you follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can sign up for email alerts there for all of our latest content. You can also follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon and Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. You can also follow Brian at SpokesMurphy as well on Twitter. Don't forget to hit us up on Facebook. Just look us up at Black and Gold Banneret as well. And you can subscribe to this podcast via iTunes. Don't forget to leave us a review as well over there. You can also hit us up on SoundCloud, Google Play, and TuneIn as well. All right, let's dive in. We'll start off with softball. UCF losing to East Carolina 4-2 in the American Athletic Conference quarterfinals. ECU, the home team, hosting the tournament this year. And UCF jumped themselves up to third, actually, to finish off the regular season with winning 2 out of 3 against Tulsa, which was a real surprise, considering that Tulsa had wrapped up the conference regular season tournament a week before. So UCF went into Tulsa, won 2 out of 3, and that bumped them up to third in the conference. Pretty good, considering how up and down the series has been, but they come up short against East Carolina in the American Athletic Conference tournament. And Eric Lopez joined me via phone earlier to talk about the season for UCF softball and what to look forward to for 2018 when the time comes around. So without further ado, here is that interview with Elo. What's up, Elo? How's Greenville?
I'm doing okay. Working for the American Digital Network, the quarterfinals and the semifinal. Recording of this. Got one more semi on Friday, but certainly a little mixed feelings because I'm by myself here, Jeffrey. I came with UCF, and unfortunately UCF is no longer here. I'm still here, but unfortunately the Knights are not. Yeah,
so they come up short 4-2 against the home team. The Knights came in as the 3 seed. It moved so quickly because last week, they managed to beat Tulsa 2 out of 3 in Oklahoma. Number 1 team in the conference, and they go on the road and take 2 out of 3 for them and boost themselves into the 3 seed, UCF does. And then first game out, you're playing the home team, East Carolina. You and I both thought that this was going to be a tough game. And what was it? Tied at 1 at one point, and then ECU hit back-to-back homers. UCF had a chance.
It was 2-1.
It was 2-1. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, and there was a sequence. It was a bad sequence. We got to the bottom of the 5th. Knights got a threat going. Courtney Roden is at the plate. She hits a pop-up to right. It's kind of a blooper sinking. And Oshiro, the senior outfielder for East Carolina, makes a sliding catch. If she doesn't make that catch, the game is at least tied at 2. Maybe UCF takes the lead with runners going in motion on contact with 2 outs. Instead, they fall behind 2-1, and then you got Meredith Burrows and Nychek, both power hitters for this Pirates offense that has 64 home runs as a team, hit back-to-back home runs to make it 4-1, and that's really what hurt the Knights. And that was disappointing. You mentioned the Tulsa series. They played tremendous, beating the regular season champions 2 out of 3 at Tulsa, and you thought that could build some momentum. But, it's weird, Jeff. I had a bad feeling, and this goes back to when the schedule was announced. I didn't like the fact that UCF ended the season at Tulsa right before the tournament, and the reason is that is not an easy flight from Orlando to Tulsa. First of all, it's not a direct flight. You got to probably have a stop in Houston or Dallas or somewhere. Probably
Oklahoma City or something like that.
Something like that. Whatever. I mean, whatever you choose and whatever options you have. So, the team, there's not an excuse. It's just reality. They play the game Sunday. They win the game. They fly back to Orlando. They probably got back around midnight, having done that trip. They got back around midnight Sunday night. Now you got one day to prep to fly out Tuesday to Greenville. Then you find out late Monday night, due to weather concerns, we got to move up your game against East Carolina from Thursday to Wednesday.
Yeah, that's where I think they got caught.
And here's the problem. So while UCF is doing all of this traveling all the way from Tulsa to Orlando, and then now you got a day, and then now you got to travel from Orlando to Raleigh, and then you got to bus 2 hours to Greenville, because as you know, there's not a direct flight to Greenville from Orlando. Meanwhile, the host team, East Carolina, had a bye week in conference. They didn't have a game, so they're rested. And while UCF's traveling, I guarantee you East Carolina was practicing for multiple days, getting ready. And so I just thought it was a tough spot. You're playing at the host team's place, and with all the travel situation, it was really a tough situation for this young team. I think a veteran team is not as affected by those kind of things, but when you have so many young players and so many freshman players that are going through this the first time, Jeff, you don't know how they're going to react to that.
Fair point, but can I play devil's advocate with you for a second?
Absolutely.
UCF had 10 hits in the ballgame. East Carolina had 5. You get 10 hits in a 7-inning ball game and you only get 2 runs, you're leaving people all over the bases left and right. You got to get a hit. And I thought that, sort of the microcosm of it was the bottom of the 7th. You get you're down 3, right? But the Knights had 9, 1, and 2 coming up. So Megan Greenwell gets a single, and then Linnea Goodman, and then consecutively, Linnea Goodman grounds out to first on a rocket. And then Brittany Solis grounds out to third on a rocket. And then all of a sudden, it's 2 out, runner on second. That's when Cassidy Brewer steps up to the plate. You get a hit in the right spot, and now you have 2 on, 1 out at the very least for Cassidy Brewer, who, as we know, her bat's just been exploding of late. You could possibly, instead of scoring 1 run, you score 2 on her double. Now it's 4-3 with 1 out, and you got Courtney Roten up, and then she grounded out to short to end the ball game. But like I said, I mean, it's not like UCF looked tired out there. I mean, the bats were alive. They had 10 hits in the game, and they couldn't push anything across.
Well, but they couldn't get back-to-back hits. They couldn't get that momentum rolling. And the ECU Softball Stadium is a place where there's only left field. If the wind's blowing out, you could hit it out of there. But center field's 220. So it was just tough to manufacture hits. Richie hit her spots when she needed to. And UCF made some mental mistakes defensively that led to East Carolina getting, the first couple of runs, in all honesty. So that didn't help. I think if UCF would have gone off to the lead early, I think it would have settled things down. But it happened. And you're right. They had chances, and they didn't give that. They didn't have that big inning, that 2-3 inning with momentum, or 3 or 4 hits in a row. And that's the name of the game. I think it was a learning experience for a lot of young players. Remember, this was Aaliyah White's first ever postseason game as a freshman. I think she takes a lot from that. She'll learn from that. And certainly I think a lot of the young players learned from that. I mean, there was a play where UCF had a chance to pick off the runner in first base, and Aubrey Johnson's covering first, can't handle the throw by Brewer. Yeah. And in that inning, the Pirates get a run. A play where Aaliyah White has a slow grounder to first can't beat out the ECU runner. I mean, things like that. Those things are magnified in postseason, and it's a learning experience. You can't, and I don't think it was an accident with East Carolina throwing a senior, Lydia Ritchie, that was her third consecutive year starting a conference tournament game. She knows what's going on, not to mention the fact she's pitching in her own home park. So it was just a lot of things. It wasn't UCF's day at the end of the day. Unfortunately, in the single elimination tournament, that's going to happen.
Yeah,
it wasn't their day. The ball didn't bounce their way, and that's kind of sometimes the name of the game.
See, I'm telling you, man, double elimination.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens with Wichita State getting that. It's funny. I mean, people have asked me about that, and, I don't have a strong opinion either way. I'm fine with either way. The question becomes, and that's the hot topic, is if you do a double elimination, I don't think they want to do 8 teams for double elimination. I mean, Conference USA is currently doing some variations of it. And I think if you're going to do double elimination, do you limit the number of teams that play in the tournament to 4 to 6? I don't see teams doing it for 8, but who knows what time will tell. I know this year I can tell you it's the first year that the American Conference has put in this rule where the higher seed is always the home team. You know how in the past in the tournament, Jeff, they would rotate on who's the home team based on how many times a team's been home, how many times a team's been on the road. Well, they've done away with that in softball. And I do wonder if they're going to do that in Clearwater for baseball in a few weeks. But, step by step. And, again, the young team, disappointing result. But, I think it's something that a lot of those young players will learn and take with them moving. What did Coach Gillespie say after the game? Well, it's just, it's disappointing. A lot of mixed feelings, as it always is at the end of the season, the seniors. So let's talk about the seniors, Jeff. Brittany Solis, Linnea, I think she was emotional, sad, because that's probably – and we'll get into the postseason situation a little bit, but Brittany Solis, Linnea Goodman, Willow Callanan, Manemi Calixto, 4 seniors. But you look at Linnea, 4 years, Brittany Solis, 4 years, part of 2 regular season championships teams, and also a regular season championships, 2 regular season championship teams, and a tournament title, 3 NCAA tournament appearances. I think she was disappointed, Coach Gillespie, that they couldn't get Solis and Linnea to that elusive 4th straight NCAA tournament, which no UCF player has ever done. That would have been a first. And with how they met to the program, I think she was disappointed for them. Willow Callanan would have been 3 for 3 for her. So that was the disappointing part. And I think she felt, disappointed with some of the miscues defensively. And like you mentioned, some of the timely hitting situations with runners in score position not able to cash in. I think you're going to get beat that way. There's no question about that. I think what Coach Gillespie kind of shared afterwards, and I think what everybody would share afterwards. UCF 63 in the RPI coming into this weekend. They have any shot at the NCAA? No, I don't think so. And, at the time that we record this, the American Conference right now is looking at a 1-bid league. The only chance they have is if Houston wins the championship game, or if Tulsa, let's say, Tulsa does not win the championship. That's where the only reason I think they'll get 2 bids in. South Florida, who some people thought maybe had a shot with a deep run to maybe get in as a large, got absolutely blown out by Memphis. So I think they're out. But no, I don't think so. Not this year. That the RPI is too high. Historically, you don't get in as an at-large with a 60-some RBI in softball. And the problem this year is one of the storylines going into Selection Sunday is how many teams is the SEC going to get? They have 13 teams in softball. Some people think, myself included, that they might get all 13 teams in. Holy moly, really? Well, yeah, and if that's the case, that's going to be 2 or 3 spots that normally would be available that are not available, and that's going to be at the expense of probably Southern programs within the area, and probably not Power 5 schools. So even if UCF maybe had a better RPI, they might have gotten left out. So it remains to be seen, but no, I just don't think they have the opportunity for that. And then let me address this. There's another postseason now. It's kind of, and I'll make it simple for the audience, but it's kind of like the NIT. They're starting the softball version of the NIT, kind of like the women's NIT in basketball and men's basketball NIT. It's a little different in that the NCAA is not involved with this tournament. It's more like the women's basketball NIT where you got to spend money to participate in the tournament. It's not like the men's basketball NIT where the NCAA covers that. I don't expect UCF to accept that. They will not accept an invite to that. I don't think I think the program is You've just gone to 3 straight regional finals. I don't think they're all of a sudden going to say, well, let's just settle for the NIT or whatever it's called, I believe. And
it's called the NISC, the National Invitational Softball Championship.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. And I don't see UCF doing that this year, and I don't see them wanting to spend that money for that. And again, when you're coming off 3 straight NCAA tournaments, that's a disappointment. You don't make the NCAA. That's the bar that's set in this program. And I kind of agree with it personally. I don't think you'd get much out of it in the situation that you're in to participate in that. I think certainly for a program like men's basketball that hasn't been to postseason in a while, or even women's basketball, I understand that. But for softball, I think that they're going to use this as motivation for next year, that it's NCAA or bust. We don't settle for things. And I think that's going to be part of the message going into 2018.
Well, I think it would be nice if UCF got the chance to host, and then if you sent like a bunch of Southern teams down to UCF, like, if you had some teams from the ASUN.
The tab on that?
Well, yeah, good point. But at least, if you got some local teams that are coming around that may come and foot the bill for it and help foot the bill at least for some of the hosting costs through ticket prices and all that, I think that I would at least have to think about that. But then again, of course, here I am spending other people's money.
Nice of you to spend it. I mean, from what I've been told, if you're hosting, you're probably spending up to 15 to 20 grand per round, per weekend. And so
I could use another car, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, if you go on the road, it might be less. If you don't host, you go on the road. But one of the other issues is, here's the other problem. So let's say UCF is in this postseason, and we saw this with women's basketball. Women's basketball got to host the tournaments, and they played Stetson. Now, they didn't play Stetson in the regular season this year, so it wasn't as big of a deal. So, for example, for softball, where there's a lot of midweeks, let's say they get an FAU, hypothetically, or an FIU, well, those are teams that normally you play anyway. You don't want to play them in a postseason a year. I mean, you already play them. That's nothing exciting.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're looking at teams like FAU, UNF, and maybe, I don't know, some team like, that from the South, but not from Florida, like some team like, I don't know, Liberty or something like that, right?
Right. Well, I have some questions about this postseason. I'm not against it. I'm for it, but I think there's some things that have to be tweaked. For example, I think the price, if it's true that you have to be spending like 15 to 20 grand to participate in host, I think that needs to be lowered. That needs to be lowered immensely. I think it needs to be more in the maybe $5 grand range. In softball, you're not going to get administrations to kind of buy into that. I mean, you're having a hard time enough getting support during the season itself. And look, I'm not even a big endorser of spending that money moving forward, for example, for like if men's basketball. Now, men's basketball is a bad example because the NCAA covers that, but to an extent. But I think you have to be careful on what the team season is. If your expectations were to make the NCAAs and you fall short, I don't think players are going to be excited to participate in the NISC or the women's NIT tournament. And I think that's something that's got to be thought about moving forward, because the last thing you want to do is spend money and then your team goes through the motions and doesn't, show up, which, as you've seen, Jeff, happens a lot in NITs in men's basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to make sure that it's worth it in terms of, and that comes down to the coaches too, and the coaches having a frank and honest conversation with your athletic director and your sports administrator, saying, look, do you think we could get out of here and win this, and A, recoup our money, and B, play enough games where it'll be worth it? And the coaches have to be honest and say, yeah, I think so, or you know what, not this year. And then you make your decision based on that. And sometimes those are difficult conversations to have.
They are, and then expectations, a lot of it will play. Like women's basketball, for example, had no expectations going in. They had a tremendous turnaround. So you could see why they hosted a women's NIT basketball game. But I don't know if moving forward, Jeff, that's even a great idea for, okay, like next year or 2 years from now, okay, women's NIT have to settle for the NIT. At that point, you might have to consider some things. Maybe you don't want to host a game and spend money or things like that. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. And from what I've been told, it looks like volleyball is heading in the same direction with a similar type of tournament like softball, which will be very interesting to see how they can make that work. So, like I said, I don't expect to be in postseason. And I think, honestly, now that the season's over, I think if you had some trust serum, and they'll never acknowledge it, they never look at it this way, but from an outside perspective, considering that you lost 10 seniors, including arguably one of, if not the greatest pitcher in your program history, certainly the most decorated pitcher in the history of the program, and Shelby Turney here was an All-American, all-time winningest pitcher. You lose a Player of the Year in 2015, and Jessica Uvari is one of the top 5 power hitters of all time in the program's history, as well as Samantha McCloskey, who also ranks in the top 5. This team was starting from scratch. You had 3 freshman pitchers. I think to have a winning season, finish 3rd in the conference, get a win over Baylor, I think it's building blocks. It's a good step for next year where they got a tremendous class coming next year. They've got a pitcher that's one of the top pitchers in the state of Florida coming in next year from down in the South Florida area that they're really excited about. So I think pair up with Aaliyah White. I think there'll be another pitcher added to that. They got an infielder coming in that's one of the best infielders in the state. It could be in the play there. So they're certainly getting more talent up. It's just that you had so much young youth this year. You kind of have to take some baby steps, and that hurt them a lot.
Yeah, you broke up there for a second. It was you said Tamisha Glover when she hurt herself in the Houston series. Yeah.
Was playing tremendous third base, hitting in the middle of the lineup, getting hurt and lost for the season, and that Houston Glover stays healthy. I think they win a couple extra games, and maybe that's the difference between maybe they're still playing in the conference tournament, maybe they're in the NCAA tournament. The margin for error is that thin in softball. It's very fascinating. So a lot of things didn't go their way, but at the end of the day, they still had a winning season, and I think there are a lot of positives when you look at the all 8 conference selections overall on the roster, and you got players like Aaliyah White, who's a second-team all-conference coming back. Clarkowski's coming back here. Clarkowski, a hitter. You've got certainly Courtney Roden coming back. Cassidy Brewer, first-team all-conference, who I think is really right now headed for a tremendous second half of her career. I mean, she keeps getting better and better every day.
Yeah, she was like the real breakout star this year, I thought.
Oh yeah, no question. If first-team all-conference could do it all. I mean, she's just getting better and better. And with some of these young recruits coming in, especially in pitching, I think UCF will be fine next year. And once again, we'll contend and get back to the postseason play.
You answered. By the way, by going through all that, you answered my last question, so you're all set. So, all right. So, real quick, wow. What do you got? You're on the American Digital Network. You and Jeff Brightwell, who we know from Memphis. Yep. You guys have the second semifinal Friday afternoon, 1 p.m. That's Tulsa, the 1 seed against Memphis, the 5 seed, and then the winner of that game plays Houston. How about Houston getting an extra day off before the championship game on ESPN on Saturday? Nice break there, huh?
No question about it. Houston, obviously, the way they affected it, Houston got to play early, and they're going to get a chance to set. And they're playing very well. I would not be surprised if Houston wins the championship and gets a bid, which would be good for the American Athletic Conference. Obviously, that would be a second team into the field, guaranteed. They're playing Savannah Heedner, is played at a very high level, 2 shutouts as a pitcher, reminding me a lot of Angel Shamblin, what she did 10 years ago when Houston won the tournament title in Orlando. But it should be a good final. It'll be on ESPN. Mark Neely and former Arizona great, Jenny Dalton Hill will be on that broadcast team, and actually yours truly will be working some stats for that broadcast, actually.
Nice, brother. All right, we'll be watching. We'll be watching on the American Digital Network, which you can pick up on YouTube.
Make a note, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, making sure, American Digital Network, and keep it on the social media, which you can give out. Me and Haley Alden will have hopefully have a pregame leading into the championship game on Saturday. We're going to have postgame wrap-ups. In fact, it's probably posted by the time this podcast is up. We recapped Houston's run to the championship game. We'll do a similar one for the winner of Memphis and Tulsa. So a lot of softball coverage. As you know, Haley Alden is just the busiest person working in town, and I'll be working with her the weekend. So hopefully people can enjoy that coverage on the softball side. But Greenville is fun, and I know you're gonna enjoy yourself when you get in Clearwater for baseball tournament, which is going to be wild in a few weeks as well for the tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, especially the run up leading up to it, man. So, all right, well, safe travels, have fun up in Greenville. Tell all the folks we said hey, and I'll see you when you get back. All right.
Sounds good, Jeffrey.
And don't forget to follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. You can also follow the American Athletic Conference and the action at the tournament the rest of this weekend on the American Digital Network. Eric's doing play-by-play there. The Twitter handle is American_DN, and also for all the latest softball news from the American, hit up Twitter at American_S-Ball. American_S-Ball. Stick around, because coming up next, we'll talk baseball with Brian Murphy. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
All right, thanks to Andrew and Trace. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. A reminder to follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret, on Facebook at Black and Gold Banneret as well, and at blackandgoldbanneret.com. And subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn. All right, flipping over to baseball. UCF coming up on a couple big weekends here. They finish off, they actually defeated Miami on Wednesday night by down in Coral Gables. And we had Brian Murphy on, our baseball writer for Black and Gold Banneret, actually, as that game was finishing up, to talk about the direction of UCF baseball. Of course, that marked Greg Lovelady's return to his old stomping grounds down in Coral Gables, where he went to college before and won a couple national championships. So, and also UCF baseball has two key conference series coming up against Cincinnati, at Cincinnati, before they wrap up at home against USF, and sandwiched in between those three-game conference sets as a road tilt against FAU coming up in Boca. But nonetheless, the Knights and Greg Lovelady in his first year find themselves in the thick of the American Athletic Conference regular season title race. And to talk about that, here is my interview with our baseball writer at Black and Gold Banneret, Brian Murphy. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Jeff, how you doing tonight?
Good, brother. Thanks for coming in on this unusual show with Lopez out of town. And we're taking a look at UCF baseball tonight, facing the Miami Hurricanes. And things got turned around real quickly, and you had a little preview of this game coming in with Greg Lovelady returning back to his old stomping grounds. And, maybe not stomping is the appropriate word at this point. But as we're recording this, it's top 9, and UCF's up 3-1. And, and this is, as a UCF fan, I mean, this is great to see. Wow, UCF's beaten Miami in Coral Gables. That doesn't happen all that often, does it?
It does not, but this is not exactly the Miami team that everybody's used to.
True.
Yes. The offense of this Hurricane team is abysmal. It is, I think they have the fourth worst. Just think of the Miami Hurricanes, all the players they've churned out in the major leagues offensively. This Hurricanes team has the fourth worst batting average in D1. I think there are 295 teams in D1 baseball. They are 291st, barely ahead of the likes of luminaries such as New York Institute of Technology and I think Savannah State or Mississippi Valley State. Like it's gotten way bad for the Hurricanes. And they are very close to missing the tournament, which is incredibly rare.
Yeah, first time. If they miss the tournament, Lopez and I were talking about this week, it would be the first time in 44 years that they would miss out on the tournament. The last time that they missed the tournament was 1972. I mean, yeah. None of us were alive. I mean, that's almost impossible. But yeah, but I mean, UCF getting at least as of right now, in the lead, and they seem to be getting good production. I was really impressed so far. I think this narrative for this UCF team right now, and I want to know what you think of this because you follow them much more closely all year.
Yes,
the pitchers. And the way Greg Lovelady has used them in particular tonight, he's thrown 4 pitchers out there, each 2 innings, and they still have obviously the bottom of the ninth to finish out. But the pitchers the way he has used the pitching staff, I think he's just played his cards perfectly well. What's been the secret for Greg Lovelady and this pitching staff?
Well, I think, with Greg Lovelady, he is a big bullpen guy. He will always tell you that he never wants to overwork his starters. Mm-hmm. Now, some managers might disagree with that, but with him, his philosophy is get the best out of your starters that you can for 6 innings, maybe 5 or 6 innings, and then go to your bullpen. And what he has wanted to do is bring in an established dominant back end of the bullpen for this team. And this team this year is really, really good at the back end. They have, a myriad of pitchers who are very good in relief, but the back end of Jason Barr and Bryce Tucker have been superb this year. I think Jason Barr actually gave a run tonight, which is rare for him, but Jason Barr is averaging about 14 Ks per 9, and Bryce Tucker, who actually gave up a run over the weekend in the series to Tulane, in a game in which I think he was tagged with a loss, I believe his ERA, as I'm pulling it up, I believe his ERA is under 1, even with the run he gave up over the weekend. So, again, it's about getting good work out of your starters, but not overtaxing them, and then leaning on your bullpen. And he's been able to do that because that bullpen's really, really good.
Well, Eric Heppel has made 11 appearances, hasn't given up a run. Thad Ward has made 22 appearances. His ERA is 0.64. Trent Thompson's made 14 appearances, 0.75. Bryce Tucker, 22 appearances, 0.92. Jordan Sheff's 22 appearances, 1.85 ERA. So, yeah, I mean, it's been murderer's row for the bullpen. And you talked about Barr. I mean, we know how good he's been, particularly in
relief. A lot of his ERA is actually inflated a little bit,
right?
Because early in the year he was starting, and while he was still striking out a lot of guys, he was giving up 2 or 3 runs in 4 or 5 innings. But since he's come into relief, his ERA is barely over 2.
Yeah, he's actually right now leading the team in strikeouts at the moment. He had 71 coming into tonight, so he had 4 tonight, so 75. And
and the weird thing about that is, so if he pitched 2 innings tonight. Mm-hmm. He's at 48 1/3 innings. To qualify for like an individual pitching stat for a D1 statistic, you have to average 1 inning per team game played. Well, he's at 48.1, and this is UCF's 49th game, so he's very close to qualifying. Why that's significant? If you took his Ks per 9 average, mm-hmm. and it was actually qualifying, which he only needs 2 more outs really, he would actually have the 3rd best Ks per 9 average in the entire country at about 14.1 per 9.
Wow, that has been said. Has there been a secret to it, or is it just the way that Lovelady has just said, I'm going to ride the bullpen, and it's just been such a tremendous change from last year and really every year under Terry Rooney, where Rooney let the starters go and really didn't have much confidence in his bullpen?
A couple of things that they've said, a couple of pitchers, the relief pitchers I've talked to, have said that they feel much more comfortable pitching in the zone this year. And it's been stressed to them over and over again by Lovelady and my pitching coach, Justin Parker, who deserves a lot of credit too, about, look, guys, throw your stuff in the zone, make the guys hit it. Don't give any free passes, and trust your stuff to know that you can stay away from barrels. I think with the previous regime, I think they weren't given as much faith to just attack the zone. I think they're doing that now, and I think it's working, obviously, and I think that breeds confidence because now they know they can throw whatever they want to throw, and they don't really have to nibble that much. They can throw their stuff, and they can trust they can throw it in the zone because they're getting weak contact. They're getting out.
Well, they're also getting some hits, too, by the way, because they just tacked on a pair while we were just talking. Now it's 5-1 in the ninth in favor of the Knights as Luke Hamblin continues his run. He just picked up a 2 RBI single. And I want to talk about the bats a little bit, too, because I think that's gone relatively unheralded. You still have 4 guys over the 300 mark, 4 everyday guys in particular. Putnam, Hamblin, Ryland Thomas, and Micah. and Matthew Micah. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Rylan Thomas, who's just been a revelation as a freshman, leading the team in RBI with 44. He's got 11 home runs, and he's hitting over 300 at 303. Has he been a pleasant surprise, or were they more or less expecting this from him?
I mean, he knew he was going to come in, and his job is to produce runs. He's a power bat. That's what he was in high school. I think he's hit fourth regularly for this team. I think maybe he didn't expect to be in a cleanup spot right away for this team as a freshman. But yeah, I think I talked to him on Tuesday. Very quiet, unassuming kid. Doesn't like to brag about himself. Although, yeah, you look at his numbers. He's slugging .539. He's got an OPS over 900, well over 900, or just about 900. And he's just like, I'm just doing my job, just driving in runs. But I think that for Lovelady and for his coaches, yeah, they needed this because the offense this year, there have been some good spots. They will say that the offense has needed to pick it up to the pitching's level. And without Rylan Thomas there, with his 11 home runs and 44 RBIs and that production, this offense is really, really hurting. So I don't know if they would say that it was a surprise to them, but I know for a fact that they are pleased and lucky to have him, not only this year, but going forward as a building block. And it also stands to reason to mention that Rylan Thomas has made 7 appearances out of the bullpen and has not given up a run in 8 innings because everyone out of that bullpen gives up no run.
Right. Yeah, his lone win actually in the out of the as a pitcher actually came in that one game earlier this season that capped off the series against Central Michigan when he had that, I think it was 11 or 12 RBIs in that weekend, and then Luke Hamblin actually had the walk-off hit in the final game of the series that gave Rylan Thomas his first career win on the mound. But man, the hitting has been something not just for Thomas but for everyone all the way around. I want to take a look at the schedule here coming up because we're coming up on the we have 2 more regular season weekends, and then it's tournament time over in Clearwater. The Knights are currently in the standings in second place, tied for second in the American with Houston, who themselves are going through quite a bit of turmoil. I was reading earlier today with one of their top pitchers having been dismissed from the team. They're right now, UCF and Houston all square at 11-7 in the league. Both teams over 30 wins. The Knights are 33-15 overall. Houston's 31-17. USF is leading the conference at 38-10, and the Knights are heading up to Cincinnati, who is third from last place in the league at 8-10 in the conference and 26-23 overall. But they are 14-9 at home. The Bearcats are, and they've won 4 in a row coming in. So, what is the outlook on this series? Because I feel like with USF coming up in the following weekend, the home weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, May 18th through the 20th, it could be really easy to look at where Cincinnati is in the standings and think, don't worry about it, we got this. Let's just take care of business, and then we'll take on USF later on. But Cincinnati, this kind of scares me a little bit. Is my fear justified?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail right on the head. This is, I don't know if it's a trap weekend, but I mean, this you couldn't fault this team for looking ahead a little bit. I mean, some players have even said, kind of quietly, but have said, they understand what their RPI is, and they're, kind of thinking about maybe, can they get into the tournament? Well, that's even further down the road. But just for this upcoming weekend, yeah, I think the message has to be from Lovelady is focus. And, and every day he'll say, each day's game is the most important game of the year. He pounds that into the ground, which is great. But that really needs to be harped on this weekend because if you just win these games and you set it up coming into next weekend, and who knows what USF will do this weekend. I think they play at UConn. So coming into next weekend, if they get through Cincinnati, you would have UCF, USF, 1 game difference in the standings at the top of the AAC, and a 3-game set in Orlando to basically determine the champion. I mean, it'd be amazing. The problem is, don't go there yet. We're not there yet. So I think, like we can talk about it because the prospect is very exciting. But yeah, I think for Lovelady, he can see the schedule too. He knows what that rivalry means and what it could mean, obviously, for seeding and championship purposes. But every day's game is the most important one of the year. And you will hear, I'm sure if I was in the locker room in Cincinnati this weekend, you would hear that 50,000 times.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. They are heading. USF is heading to Storrs, Connecticut, for that 3-game set against UConn. That is no walk in the park either against UConn. I mean, the defending conference champions. They're in 4th place at 10-8 in the league, 26-20 overall, 8-2 at home. Only 10 home games because the snow only just stopped falling in Connecticut. Yeah. You're looking at. The other thing was, you could really, from the UCF perspective, you could really feast on Cincinnati's hitting, by the way, because they're actually dead last in the conference in team batting average at 250. Yeah. By contrast, UCF is 4th at 280. USF is the only team over 300. They're at 304 as a team. But UCF leads the conference in team ERA at 2.77. Cincinnati coming in at 4.41, which is 5th. But I'm looking at these standings here, Brian, and yeah, I think that am I right to assess that the conference is much improved overall from last season? Because even though even look down at the bottom, Cincinnati, Memphis, East Carolina bringing up the rear. But all these teams, they all have, except for Tulane, they all have 25 wins or more. And, it stands to reason Tulane might get to 25 wins before the end of the season. That's a sharp contrast to last year because I remember I was doing a couple games for Memphis at the tournament in Clearwater on the American Digital Network, and they came into the tournament shy of 20 wins. And so they struggled through to get to that 20-win mark. I think they finished with 21 or 22. But how much more improved is the league as a whole this year compared to last year, and how may that help them out in terms come tournament selection time?
Well, certainly, facing USF at the end of the year would help their RPI a little bit. USF is ranked in some polls, but going back, the AAC has never had more than 5 teams with a winning conference record in baseball. They've only had 4 in any year, and this year they have 5. And that doesn't even include East Carolina, who, has been beset with a bunch of really bad injury luck. But a team in East Carolina that came into the season as a top 10 team nationally. Right. And they're at the bottom. This conference is very strong top to bottom because, you've got 5 teams over 500. The team at the bottom should have been much, much better. And a team like Cincinnati is still a threat at 8-10, and it's all bunched together. I mean, the difference between Cincinnati and UCF from 2nd to 6th is only 3 games. Right.
Yeah, it's and think about. USF themselves, they're only 1 game ahead of UCF and Houston at the moment, and they've taken advantage of playing so many games at home. They only played 11 games outside of Tampa at 7-4, but they're 31-6 at home. 31 of their 38 wins have come at home.
Two things on that though. Yeah, they have a season. So they have already played their last game at home. USF's last game at home was on Sunday, and they've started this season-ending going into the conference tournament road trip that'll take them to UConn, Jacksonville, and UCF. But it really did start last night in Gainesville. They beat the number 5 Gators. That's right, 15-10 in Gainesville. Again, this Bulls team is real dangerous. We'll see what they can do with 2 conference series on the road to finish the regular season.
I'm hoping that we get them tired out before for that 3-game set, and we have a chance to take the regular season down. That would be really something for Greg Lovelady and the Knights in his first year. Would be a pleasant surprise. Right now, the Knights still leading 5-1. They're in the bottom of the 9th down in Coral Gables with 1 out. Actually, it looks like here we are talking about this, and Miami already has gotten 2 guys on with 1 out. So the Knights are not out of the woods yet, but. yeah, and this is against Bryce Tucker, by the way, who's given up, who came in relief here in the ninth and has given up so far just one hit. But all right, so let's take a look ahead at the as we finish up. By the way, a reminder: the American Athletic Conference Tournament will be in Clearwater at, well, now it's called Spectrum Field. Used to be Bright House Field, and now, of course, everything got changed over to Spectrum. It will be following not this weekend, not following next weekend, and it goes. The official dates are May 23rd through the 28th. The first day of the tournament, the 23rd. That's the Tuesday. Those two games will be on CBS Sports Network, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday on the American Digital Network online, and then the championship on ESPN News on Sunday, 28th. Brian, what do you got cooking in your neck of the woods here with baseball, and what you'll be working on the rest of the way here as we come down the pike for these last two series of the regular baseball season?
I will have an article up either Thursday night or Friday about, again, we talk about the bullpen. I have an article coming out about the bullpen on Thursday or Friday, sort of spotlighting Jason Barr a little bit. A great story for a kid who was cut twice by the previous regime and Terry Rooney, and has come back and had a really awesome season. But really the bullpen overall and how invaluable they have been to this team. And then we will see how the chips fall against Cincinnati, and then get ready for next weekend. Hopefully, if the standings stay the same, it could be a real crowded, raucous environment at the UCF Baseball Complex, which is, frankly, rare to say in recent years.
Yeah, it does set up. Boy, here we are again. See, here we are looking ahead. Man, I hope the players aren't. Here we are looking ahead to this series. It's going to be a zoo down there, 18th, 19th, and 20th. If that's the case, you got 3 games. If UCF, if both teams are within 1 game, say, or maybe even tied in the standings heading into this game, it could be a real zoo down there. So it should be fun. But first things first, the Knights have to take care of Cincinnati, and that series is taking place. I had the schedule up a sec. There it is. Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Cincinnati. That game will be carried live on the Knights radio flagship, 96.9 FM. The game Friday at 6:30, Saturday at 4, and Cincinnati at 1. And, oh, by the way, can't forget about this also. Tuesday night, last non-conference game of the year of the regular season down in Boca, against Florida Atlantic, Tuesday, May 16th at 6:30. So you South Florida Knights down there, chance to check out chance to check out the Knights one more time before the regular season concludes. Brian Murphy, thanks once again, brother. Really appreciate your effort for us here on Black and Gold Banneret, and we'll be catching you hopefully at one of these. Maybe we'll be catching you at the USF series. What do you say?
I will certainly be there on Thursday and Saturday. Definitely be there for those 2 games.
All right, sounds good, brother. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jeff.
And thanks again to Brian. Remember to follow him on Twitter at @spokes_Murphy for all the latest writings that he has on UCF baseball as well, with that big road series coming up against Cincinnati. A couple updates that we wanted to bring you from some of the other sports. This is a busy time, a really busy weekend for what they call the Olympic sports over at UCF. But we did have one season conclusion that we wanted to pass along to you. Women's golf came in 14th place in the NCAA regionals at the University of Georgia Golf Course in Athens, Georgia. The Knights finished the season ranked 25th in the country, but they finished at 14th. The top 6 move on to the NCAA championships from the 4 regionals. So Emily Marin's team, their season concludes with that performance. But nonetheless, congratulations to them on winning the conference title, making it to the NCAA regionals. And again, I wanted to thank Emily for coming on the show when she did right after the conclusion of that championship. That was awesome. And congratulations to the team on a job well done. Ashley Holder, by the way, who was the top golfer for UCF in the conference, really top golfer all year, finished 8 over for the 3-round tournament. It is a tough golf course up in Athens. I've actually been there before when I used to work up in northeastern Georgia. So wanted to pass along again. Congratulations to UCF women's golf on a job well done this year. Men's golf, they have their NCAA regional coming up starting on Monday in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, actually at College Grove, Tennessee. That goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the NCAA regionals, so make sure you follow UCFKnights.com for the latest on that. I'm sure there'll be some live scoring up there at some place. So the men's golf team getting ready up in Tennessee for their journey in the NCAA tournament. And good luck to Bryce Waller and company as they get ready for the NCAAs. Track and field, wanted to update you on that. The American Conference Outdoor Championships start this weekend. Actually, they go all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Houston for the Knights. Remember, they are the most recent indoor champions. They were the outdoor runners-up last year to the University of Cincinnati. The Knights beat Cincinnati in the indoors earlier this year, back in late February. Don't forget to keep an eye on Anne-Marie Blaney and Rosie Chamberlain, and all the sprinters for UCF who've done such an outstanding job. The outdoor championships at Houston will be broadcast, or webcast really, by the American Digital Network starting at 1:30 p.m. on Eastern Time on Friday, May the 12th, and going through the entire weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, make sure you check that out and keep an eye on UCF for all the latest having to do with the track and field team. Very good chance for the Knights to take home the American Athletic Conference Track Championship once again. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from Houston on the American Digital Network. Rowing has the American Championships from Sarasota. That takes place on Saturday. So be on the lookout for that as well. The NCAA Championships, UCF is scheduled to travel to those, according to UCFKnights.com, May 26th. But first things first, take care of conference business down at Sarasota at the Rowing Championships on Saturday for the Knights. And last but not least, men's tennis. They will start their NCAA Championships on Friday, May the 12th, 11 a.m. Eastern against number 42 Louisville up in Columbus, Ohio. If the Knights win, they play the winner of Ohio State and Butler on Saturday, May the 13th. But the Knights are up there already, and they're getting ready to go for the NCAA Men's Tennis Championship. So make sure you follow those as well. There's a link to live stats on UCFKnights.com as well. So that's going to do it for us for here on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast for the week. Thanks again to Eric for taking some time to join me via phone from the American Softball Championships up in Greenville. Make sure you follow him at Eric Lopez Elo. Follow also American_DN. Eric's going to be doing play-by-play for the American Softball Championships throughout the remainder of the week. With the championship game actually being on ESPN. Eric won't be doing that, but you can follow him on the American Digital Network. He will be working the games for them, American_DN and American_S-Ball as well for all the latest. And he's also doing some video features for the conference as well with Haley Otten, so be on the lookout for those as well. Also, thanks to Brian Murphy, our baseball writer at blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can follow him at spokes_Murphy on Twitter. Don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon. Also, you can follow Black and Gold Banneret at blackandgoldbanneret.com. Sign up for email alerts for any podcasts or articles that come out from us. And also, you can look us up, at least this podcast, you can look us up on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn. Subscribe to us if you haven't yet. Rate us on iTunes, please. If you haven't done so, please do. We really appreciate it. Thanks again for you, once again, always, for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. I'm Jeff Sharon. We'll catch you back with a full slate of folks next week. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.